I don't want to say it's funny, but I always find it interesting to see how day by day, when a huge story comes out, how it kind of evolves and changes and what feels like the lead story with that main headline as the days go on. Thinking about Peyton Manning, the big story coming out, the HGH allegation over the weekend, and you spoke to him 3 days later now, and you can take this any direction you would like. What part of this story interests you the most?
Paul, I think, sort of following the trail. And look, this is sort of a strange little part of the story, but on Sunday, I emailed the guy who runs this institute, Geyer, and I emailed him to talk about to ask him about this factual difference. Evidently, Al Jazeera says that this Charles Sly worked in this clinic in 2011. Geyer's statement said he didn't work there until 2013. So, and I went back and forth both with Geyer that evening via email and with the reporter of the story, Deborah Davies, both talking to her and then texting with her about what exactly she had. And at 4:32 a.m., I got an email from one of the producers of the show who sent me what he said was a transcript of the employment verification interview that Deborah Davies did with the Geyer Institute about Charles Sly. And so, look, it's a Word document just simply typed in there. So I had no way of knowing whether that is absolutely what was said. But then the next day they released it. So what I said is, Al Jazeera, I said this on Football Night in America, and I wrote it, that Al Jazeera claims it's 2011, and Geyer and Peyton Manning claim it's 2013. The reason that it's interesting, and the reason that I think it's relevant, is that the common thought is, if the guy didn't work there till 2013, how in the world would he know anything about Peyton Manning? Manning never went there in 2013, or there's no indication that Manning ever went there. He's playing for the Denver Broncos then. So, I mean, how would he then have known this? But clearly, if he got there on, as Al Jazeera says, October 17th, 2011, now we're talking a totally different story. That's right when Manning would have been doing his rehab, because as I reported, he was at that clinic for 35 weekdays in a row doing specific therapy that both he and the Colts thought was going to work. So if he's there for 35 days in a row at presumably the same time that Al Jazeera claims Charles Sly worked there, well, of course Charles Sly would have had some knowledge of Manning. It's not a gigantic clinic from the pictures of it. So that kind of interests me. And then, the NFL's diligence and what the NFL is going to do to look into it, I think, is also a good story.
What's more likely, that this Charles Sly guy, when he's being secretly videotaped, is phishing and just putting out false information, and the Al Jazeera, when they called the Geyer Institute, they gave the wrong date, or what the Geyer Institute and what this Charles Sly guy has recanted? In other words, we've got two instances of people not knowing they're being videotaped, not knowing that their call is being recorded, versus what people are saying now that it's become a story. Which is more likely the truth?
Well, I think I'm probably like most people. I'm wondering why 48 hours or 72 hours before this show happened did Charles Sly videotape himself saying, those 20 to 27 hours that Al Jazeera has of me on secret videotape, everything I said in that 20 to 27 hours, whatever it is. The reason I'm saying that discrepancy, 20 to 27 hours, Deborah Davies told me we have at least 20 hours of recordings of Charles Sly. And then they came out, I think, on the Today Show and said they had 27 hours. So, but anyway, it's a lot of time. And so, I mean, look, I find it very hard to believe that somebody everything that came out of someone's mouth for 20 hours is a lie. And so
specific, Peter, about send it to Florida.
Yeah.
We sent Clay Matthews painkillers, but not HGH. Mike Neal and Julius Peppers got HGH. I mean, if he's making it up, which is certainly possible, he says he is, he's got an unbelievable fortitude and imagination.
Yeah. And the only thing I would say, because everything is in play, I find it hard to believe he's making everything up. Okay, I'll just say that. But it's not nothing's impossible. But the only thing that concerns me about all this, sort of, for the NFL, whatever, for all the players and for Manning, is that there is so much that they have on the record before. On the record is a funny word to use, funny phrase to use in this, but they have so much documented, let's say, that there's so much to look into. If the NFL chooses to be very aggressive, not just with Manning, but with those other guys. So I think the NFL really has to investigate this as aggressively as they can, or else they're going to look like, we're protecting the pretty boys, or we're protecting Peyton Manning.
He's Peter King of MMQB.com and also Football Night in America on NBC. That's Ross Tucker. I'm Paul Burmeister. We're sitting in for Dan Patrick here on this Wednesday morning. To the football side of the Broncos and Brock Osweiler. If they win this weekend, they have that number 2 seed with Brock Osweiler as the quarterback. Do you think they are the biggest threat to the Patriots in the AFC?
Boy, a week ago I would have said Pittsburgh, but somehow, some way, if Pittsburgh gets in, if the revenge of Rex actually works, on Sunday, but somehow if the Steelers get in, boy, I'll tell you, when they are playing well, when they're hitting on all offensive cylinders and Roethlisberger's not throwing interceptions, they could beat any team in football by 14 points.
Right.
And so that's why I think they're pretty dangerous. I can't imagine Brock Osweiler having a huge offensive day. I don't know why, but I've just watched the last 4 weeks as he's gone 0 points in the second half, the first 3 games, and then some pretty big struggles against Cincinnati on Monday night. And, you might say, well, geez, that's a really good defense, one of the best defenses he's going to play. Well, what do you think he's going to play in January?
And what if Peyton is healthy and it's a playoff game and he's 2 for 12 in the second quarter? Could you see a scenario where Brock gets pulled and Peyton goes out there?
I could. Look, I think the only way Gary Kubiak plays Peyton Manning is if he looks at him and he is at least 10% better throwing the ball than he was November 15th against Kansas City. You cannot play football throwing the ball like Peyton Manning did against Kansas City 6 weeks ago. You just shouldn't put him in the game. Now, and as soon as that moment happens where you think that he's throwing the ball as well as he's thrown it this year, then I think you have to very seriously consider putting Manning in, no matter whether Osweiler is winning games or not. And again, this is not being disrespectful to Brock Osweiler at all. I think under all circumstances, he has done a B-plus job coming in for Manning, considering everything. His first game, I applaud the guy. But you have to look at how he's played the last month. And it's been really shaky at times. Now, I think on Monday night, I think he had some huge throws in that game. And so, look, that's what you get with a young quarterback. But I'll tell you this, I was more impressed with A.J. McCarron on Monday. How about the first 2 drives, 80 and 90 yards, touchdown on the road against the number 1 defense? I mean, wow.
Looked awfully good. Surprising, too.
Yeah.
Carolina or Arizona? I'm stealing one of Paul's questions.
You can use it.
Well, I think Arizona right now, today, I think is a little bit better, but it's almost a coin flip. I thought long and hard on Monday night when I was ranking the teams, and I picked Arizona because I think they're playing so explosively on offense, and they showed on Sunday that the Tyrann Mathieu loss is not going to cripple him. It's going to hurt him. It's not going to cripple him. And meanwhile, you've seen Carolina in the last month give up 35 and 38 points in a game. And, Cam Newton was average for the first time all year, basically, on Sunday. So, I don't know. I think Carolina could come out and put 45 points up on Tampa. And I bet that's what Ron Rivera will try to do, just because he's going to think, this is the last time we're playing for 2 weeks. We better get a really good game under our belts.
Peter, we've got about 45 seconds left. I'd love to get your thoughts on what you think is going to happen with Tom Coughlin and the Giants once the season ends.
Just my gut feeling is that John Mara is going to make a change, but I don't have any inside information. I don't think anybody does, because John Mara is just not. John Mara is a very good card player. But if you step to the microphone each of the last 2 Januaries with a very grim face and said, it's got to get better, it's got to get better, and then it doesn't get better, and they don't make the playoffs either time, and you've made the playoffs one time in the last 7 years, and I am all for, as soon as Tom Coughlin ever leaves the Giants, for them to have the biggest Coughlin celebration that there can be, because he has been a fabulous coach. But, John Mara may decide that I've got to move in a different direction. We're just not progressing.
Is the Mariners pullover because you believe in the Seahawks in the postseason?
No, the Mariners pullover is because it was on top of my drawer and I was rushing to get out the door before I came over here this morning.
That is always a good way to go about the wardrobe. He's Peter King of Football Night in America on NBC and also of mmqb.com. Peter, we appreciate you coming across town to spend time with us.
All right, Paul, thank you. And thank you, Ross.